Yeah, what is with that phoning it in or doing it live? I don't know. It came to me. I thought it was a catchy title, and that was quite a few weeks ago. Of course, now the talk comes through, and I'm like, yeah. But it's true. It fits in there somewhere. You'll see. You'll see. Anyway, good morning, everyone. And how is everyone this morning? Ready to wasn't here last week, and so I did watch Bob's talk on that he gave last week about being playful and things. So he's taking care of all that. Getting a little pop. Are we better? Is that better? So this morning, it's been quite a journey to come to this talk because, you have to be careful what you pray for. And it's a good thing to pray for things, but you have to remember that you did, in fact, pray for them. And I say that because, I wrote what I thought I was going to talk about. And just usually what happens during the week, the information begins to come through. And then I put it all together kind of on the weekend. And here we are. And so Thursday came and not too much has happened. So I was just standing in the kitchen and saying, Spirit, what is it that you want me to say? I've done enough of these talks that I just feel like I want it to be something that's valuable, something useful, something that people are going to be able to find something that they can engage with and use in their lives. So let me know what you want to do. Use me. So I go to bed. I get up in the morning. I go to work. And when I walk in that morning, it's a client that I know quite well. Now, before I tell the story of the client, what I wanted to do was sort of set the scene because my client was the answer to my prayer. But at first, I didn't recognize it, right? Because doesn't that happen sometimes? We ask for an answer. We're waiting. It doesn't come the way we wanted it to come. So then we're thinking, so not sure. So what I had started with in my talk was, I had written also, what does expand your heart? What has you feel energized and happy? And how do we cultivate a life that expands our perception, deepens our openness to love, and allows spirit to express through us more fully? Right? Okay, that's where I was starting. And when I came in to work with my client, I've known this woman for a long time, over many years, through a lot of different things in her life. And I asked her how she was, and she said she was on stress leave from work. I'm like, well, okay. And we'd been talking about her work a few weeks ago, and I thought we had had some ideas. So I was kind of surprised that she was on stress leave about it. And what she shared is that she just felt like there was so many things coming at her, and her boss was basically challenging her about her behavior and how she was working, to the point where she felt she couldn't be there. And so she was on stress leave. And I could feel she was very challenged by this, and understandably so. But as I was talking to her, I could just feel something else going on underneath a little bit. So then I said to her, well, is there something else that you would like to be doing? And she immediately jumped in and she said, you don't understand. I've been at this job for over 25 years. I'm 3 years away from my pension with the city. I've got to stay there. My family needs my income. And, that's not an option, right? And I'm like, right. That's all important. I understand that. That's a lot of years to be invested in it. But I still had the feeling that there was something going on underneath. And she was quite sure that this woman was causing all her problems, right? How many have thought that, right? The other person is causing all her problems. And I was like, yeah. And it felt like, there was kind of this little voice inside her that was trying to get her attention. So I asked her, well, is there something, again, something else you want to do? What are your hobbies and your passions? And she goes, oh, well, I just love wild plant gardening. like she works for the city in parks and recreation and all this kind of thing. And she goes around and looks at all the parks. And I just think that, we could all be planting these wild plants. And she went on, and I thought, aha, there's her light, right? She lights up. And I said, oh, well, what about spending more time at that? And again, she said, well, I can't make a living at that. Again, a story. Don't we all have that about why we can't do whatever it was? So I'm like, okay, so what if you could just explore it? What if you could just have some lighthearted chance to explore it? And in my mind, I hear, ooh, explore, playful explore. Uh-oh, here we go. I'm starting to get a sense of maybe there's something here. And sure enough, right, what I was sharing with her is really the heart of what I wanted to share here today, which is this idea that when we put so much results and how it has to be on something, it's very hard to discover whether you're interested or not because you have all these rules about it. Like, can I make a living at it? Is this going to happen? How much time is it going to take? How much money is it going to take? Right? But when we can open up a little bit and just have a look, maybe, could I dabble in this? Are we allowed to dabble? But a lot of us weren't raised that way, right? You're supposed to know. And so as I was sharing a bit more with her, she thought that maybe she could do some of that, but she didn't see it how it helped her situation at work. And when I said, well, what's happening to you right now? So I'm laying here. I said, no, like, aren't you getting excited? Aren't you getting kind of inspired? And when we have a shift within ourselves, we affect our environment, how we see it. We know that. That's our third principle, right? How we see things, how we believe, what we believe about them affects how we see them and interacts with events in our lives. So what I proposed to her was that if she changed how she was being, it might change what was going on. And then I thought about how I had actually had this experience myself. Many years ago, before I became a craniosacral therapist, I was working at the Glencoe Club as the head receptionist. And I really wanted to know what it was I was supposed to be doing. And I was thinking about it a lot and praying about it. And I was getting quite irritated that it was not coming through when it was supposed to be, to say the least. And so, I was at my work and I did like the people I worked with. And I did like what I was doing. But it wasn't it. It wasn't what I really wanted to be doing. So I was judging it, right? So, I'm kind of judging it. And that affected how I was doing it. Would it not? Huh? And I was waiting. It was just, I was waiting it out until the real job came. Till the real people I'm going to work with come. And then Spirit was nudging me along. It had me sign up for some courses in Reiki and different healing things I was doing on the weekend. And I thought, oh, this is so good. This is so great. And I really got fired up about it. And I was so excited. And I went back to work feeling all filled up. Well, now work didn't have to fill me up. I was filled up, right? So now I was happy to do what I needed to do because I liked the job for the most part. And so I became different at that job. Because now I didn't resent it and I didn't think it was in the way and it wasn't what it was supposed to be. And that's what I shared with her. And she said, oh, I see that. I said, imagine, do you think it's possible that you're becoming just kind of like you're sort of phoning in your job these days? You're not as inspired as you once were. She's like, yeah, I think so. Well, if you brought the energy of what you're doing on the weekend in, imagine coming into work that way. It might have your boss, the people you work with, feel your energy, like you want to be there and you're willing to be part of the team. I suspect your boss might have a shift about you if you brought that in. So that's what we talked about her doing, and she was quite excited about that. And she thought that was okay. And so she laid down and I started working physically a little bit more. And she kind of pops up and says, but what am I going to do? Right? That's just a temporary answer. I don't know what I want to do. Like over the thing. And I said, oh, and she said, and I'm just so confused. And I said, well, and I thought about a quote that I had heard many years ago from Deepak Chopra. And he said, loosely, being confused is a very high state. Because when you're confused, you're open. You're like, oh, is that it? Is that what I should do? Oh, what about this? Well, that's interesting. Or maybe I never thought of that. Oh, that's good. Right? And we're inquiring. We're curious. We're inquiring. We're searching. And so that opens us up to new ideas. But more importantly, it opens us up to spirit. So we pray for these answers, but we're like, it's got to fit in this box, right? Oh, that can't be it. So that's a really important state. It is a state of high consciousness for that, because what it does to us, if we know, how are we? Especially if it's something we think we know well, and the other person's talking, we're just waiting it out, right? Oh, yeah, I'm listening. And then we're like, but I know. And then you tell them how you know, right? Yeah, not very open. And it's hard to change and grow when you think you know. And you think you know about good things, but you also think you know about things, well, that's not going to change, and that won't get better, and this job doesn't work, and that we know about all that stuff too. Neither one of us is helping. So when we can open up more and be a bit more lighthearted and playful and searching, we're a whole different state. And we really are using that third principle. And also the second principle. Because in that moment, I'm alive, right? I'm not just phoning it in. I am alive. I feel engaged with life and I'm learning about things. And that is all valuable to us in our personal growth. And when you think about what that can do to us on a daily basis and where we want to go with that. And speaking of that, where did I want to go with that? I was thinking, now there was one thing I really wanted to make sure I said. Yeah. Oh, the point was, in my situation and in my client's situation, is the job didn't change, right? Her job didn't change. My job didn't change. Her boss is not going to change. Maybe will a little. But how we are changed and how we feel about it and what we bring and how we interact changes. And that's where we have the power. And that's where we are responsible for our own lives, like the one that Laura just read, because we know that. And the more we live into it, the more we can do that. And it's just being open to that listening. But some of us just preach it and don't always get it. So I'm going to confess a little bit about what happened for me. So I was all excited that I had got this answer about what I was going to talk about for my talk, right? So I thought, yippee. So I got up Saturday morning and I was doing these other chores because, basically my talk is pretty much written up in my head. I just have to jot a few notes down for myself. So that's good. So I do that. And then I start writing it down and I'm thinking, wow, that's not very deep. That's not very interesting. Well, I don't see a lot of principles in that. What's happening? What's happening? You know who's getting a hold of it, right? The ego, the mind is having a field day over here. So I'm like, yeah, well, maybe I should be sharing more about, and so I start thinking about, well, maybe I should talk about how I was opening to different things, how my heart wasn't very open when I first started being in relationships, but now I am, and anyway, hours of writing all about this journey, which one day may be a pretty good talk, right? So I did get this bit, I'm not saying it wasn't interesting. So I was writing all this stuff down about, how, initially I was afraid. And so I didn't believe in marriage and the thing. And then so of course I had that kind of marriage because I attracted it and the vibration. And then I was over here and then what happened and the meeting died and all the, right? And I thought, well, wait a minute. What about this that I just did before? And so now I have two completely different talks. So Doug comes home and he, how's it going? I got two talks. I don't know what I'm doing. Right? So I'm all tied up in knots because I don't know, and it's getting late. It's 8:00. Oh, I don't want to be in this place. I hate these talks. Got to blame somebody, right? Anyway, so the moral of the story is, you pray for an answer, you receive the answer. You also have to embrace it and not judge it, tear it apart, or ignore it. Anyway, eventually I did get swung around. Susan called, fortunately, my good friend Susan. She said, do you need a sounding board? I said, do I? And I just talked about the thing and I was like, well, she said, didn't you say that was the answer to your talk? I'm like, yeah. She goes, so? I'm like, right. Okay. Anyway. And I share that because isn't that what it's like sometimes? I just think, Spirit's up there going, how many times do I have to tell these people this? How many times do we have to go round and round on this? And I happen to find, and later you can look at the picture, a little saying that I have in my room. And it says, it's a picture of this woman and she's doing a balancing act. And it says, is willing to accept that she creates her own reality, except for some of the parts where she can't help but wonder what the hell she was thinking. Right? It's like, what was I thinking? How could that possibly have been what we were supposed to do? How could that have been what we were trying to learn about? But I think it really is because it's learning how to be in the present, not to take everything so seriously, to be more open with your heart and mind, to grow and change. And especially when we're going through changes in our lives. I know a lot of people in my life, clients and friends, are moving into a different stage of life. They're moving into retirement, having more free time, which is wonderful in the beginning. And then it becomes, well, how do I have meaning in my life? What do I do on a daily or weekly basis to create meaning? And sometimes finding that is tricky, but it's partly because we can't give ourselves enough space, right? So a little playful exploration may lead you to your heart and may give Spirit just a bit of space to get in there. And, if you're lucky enough to, pay attention and listen. And if you aren't, then reach out to people in your life, your spiritual community, your friends, for they will reflect it back to you because they can see the Christ in you always, even when we can't. So, thank you.